On the eastern cliffsides of Noxus lives an Imperial dragon, small in stature but mighty in potential. The young Smolder is eager to learn and develop his skills, but why is his mother keeping him so far from home? The ominous reasons might just surprise you. Prior to the events of the Ruination and before the Camavoran kingdom existed, dragons ruled Camavor independently. When humans began to arrive on Camavor, the two hyper-intelligent species naturally began warring. After the Camavoran kingdom was created by Camore and Avora, they wanted to stop the bloodshed and work together. So, Camore sought out an alliance with Grandmother Viper, the ancestor of all Camavoran dragons. The king offered a peace treaty, riches, and cooperation in return for the dragon's alliance and support. This pact was solidified through the solemn oath of Vol Vesperi Disinve, which roughly translates in human and dragon tongue to the will of dragons and humans. The pact ensured peace with the dragons for generations. Centuries later, the events of the Ruination played out. Camavor's end of the bargain involved providing golden treasure, cooperation, and peace to the dragons. However, these promises were permanently shattered during the Ruination era, under Viego's rule. For a more thorough explanation, go ahead and read the Ruination book, but here's a brief summary. Viego's wife, Isolde, was poisoned with magic following an assassination attempt on him. His obsession with her led him down a path of desperation as he frantically tried to save her from death. During this period, Viego spent all of the kingdom's gold, which had been amassed over generations, on witch doctors, dubious remedies, and self-proclaimed experts, all in a vain attempt to heal Isolde. The depletion of the treasury meant that Camavor could no longer fulfill its financial obligations to the dragons, breaching the first promise of the pact. Viego's next decision was to shut down the kingdom entirely to tend to his wife, plunging Camavor into chaos and neglect. This abandonment meant there was no longer an effective kingdom to support the dragons, violating the second promise of cooperation. Making matters worse, the Iron Order, led by the human version of Hecarim and known for their greed and ruthlessness, was put in charge of the kingdom. They further drained the crown's resources and made the situation a lot worse. It's unclear if dragons were actually harmed during this period of anarchy, but the absence of a stable kingdom and a peace treaty effectively nullified the third promise of the pact. Viego's final unhinged act was taking his soul to the Blessed Isles. This led to a massacre in Helia as Thresh escorted him to the Waters of Life. Bathing his dead wife in the waters resulted in an explosion and the release of the hallowed mists. This story is crucial for understanding Smolder's story for two reasons. Following the Ruination, it was alluded to that several powerful Camavoran dragons ventured to Helia to investigate the explosion, only to be corrupted by the Black Mist, which transformed them into twisted versions of their former selves. We can see a few of these dragons in Legends of Runeterra, and now that that's considered canonical, we know that that is real. It also illustrates the unpredictable and cruel nature of humans and highlights how even the Sanctity Blade chosen ruler, Viego, was easily reduced to madness. So even before Smolder's birth, humans had inflicted numerous atrocities against dragons, and particularly Imperial dragons, some at the hands of those who were once considered the dragon's most trusted allies. Centuries after the events of the Ruination, Smolder was born in Camavor. The kingdom of Camavor was still in ruins. While his mother was hunting, Smolder was taken from his nest by Noxian beastmasters looking to make a pretty penny in the black markets of Noxus. This would be the first of many life-altering negative experiences he would have with humans. Just before the ship reached Noxus, Smolder's mom intercepted the boat, burning the ship to smithereens. But Smolder, who was just a hatchling, was never recovered and was lost at sea. As Smolder drifted away from the fiery wreckage, he was just a speck in the cold, vast ocean. Eventually, the currents washed him ashore, and the young dragon found himself stranded on what ended up being the eastern shores of Valoran, just east of Noxus. Luckily, his mother had already taught him how to hunt. During one of his hunting expeditions, he crossed paths with a young human boy, Marinos. His capture by the Beastmasters made him wary of humans, yet there was something different about Marinos. He was kind and curious, just like Smolder. Over time, Smolder learned to communicate with Marinos, and their friendship grew stronger. Fun fact, Smolder's actual name is... well, Smolder can tell you himself.
My name's Ignacarius Gigantorino Rex Lespex Offerentis, but my human friend named me Smolder.
Marinos feared that if Smolder was exposed, he would be captured and sold in Noxus, so their friendship had to remain a secret. This only worked to increase Smolder's fear of humans. As the years passed, Marinos matured into adulthood and started his own family. Meanwhile, Smolder, who aged a lot slower because dragons age slower than humans, spent more time exploring alone. In order to ward off his growing feelings of loneliness and abandonment by his friend, Smolder became obsessed with growing stronger, training his draconic abilities and trying to fly. During one of his fire-breathing sessions, he expelled a huge fireball and accidentally set fire to an entire forest canopy. There was an upside to the blunder though. As smoke billowed from the burning trees, Smolder's mom was drawn to the forest. She was so happy to see her long-lost son. Rather than return to Camavor, Smolder and his mother found refuge in the cliffsides of Noxus. Each day, she trained Smolder in the ways of the dragon, and each night, in the safety of their home, Smolder listened to his mother's stories about their species' past. However, you might be asking, why didn't they return to their home in Camavor? And actually, another question answers the first. What exactly would they be returning to? Smolder's mother knew that returning to Camavor might break Smolder's young spirit, and wanted to shield him from the harsh realities that we touched on earlier. The once beautiful Camavoran kingdom that his dragon lineage was so proud of was now in total ruin because of Viego. The human communities within the region that used to ally with dragons are still most likely in shambles. The Volvesperi Disinvey Pact was broken when Viego couldn't hold up his end of the bargain, which probably reignited hostilities between humans and dragons. Still young and unable to defend himself very well, Smolder would be pretty vulnerable in Camavor because he still would probably be pretty easy target for Noxian Beastmasters or somebody else that would want to kill him. The fact that he now has corrupted dragon brothers and sisters from the Shadow Isles that are probably maybe heading back to Camavor would present another big source of trauma for him if he went back to Camavor. And Nilah, a character that keeps getting weirder and weirder, recently traveled to Camavor from the Cathcani lands to the east and killed Grandmother Viper, his grandmother, the dragon that entered the pact with Camavor in the first place. His mother's decision to keep him away from Camavor wasn't just to protect him from physical harm, but also to shield him from the psychological impact of seeing their home desolated and the looming threats of corrupted dragons and hostile humans. She wants to guard Smolder from these harsh realities until he grows up a bit and he's ready to confront them when he's a little bit more mature. So Smolder will be facing a serious, challenging internal conflict. The kindness he experienced with Marinos revealed a side of humans that are capable of coexistence. But as his mother shares the harsh realities of their past, Smolder will eventually have to come to terms with this pattern of human betrayal and cruelty towards dragons. This knowledge will most likely force him to contemplate whether the safety of dragonkind may require a full eradication of humans, and maybe just on Camavor, but potentially all over Runeterra. So the critical question of this entire story is apparent. What will Smolder's quest to reclaim his heritage entail? Will he align with humans, or will he view them as a pest that needs to be eradicated from the world? Now, if you want to learn more about how a mere human did gain the power to actually slay the matriarch of the Imperial Dragons, a bunch of sea monsters in Bilgewater, a demigod, and now demons, click on this video right here.